I don't know if Mahmoud is available. Mahmoud, can you hear me? Mahmoud?
Let me just take it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Mental Health Tuesday. My name is Mohammed Ali Machausa from Samba Sports, and I will be your moderator. This is the 167th session, meaning we've been doing this for the last more than 3 years. Every Tuesday, we gather here to discuss matters of mental health, and so that we are able to support ourselves and support those around us. This week we have a special session dedicated to the teaching class. We have had situations in Kwale County and across the country where some of the most affected health workers, security officers have been overwhelmed, and to an extent that some of them lead to taking their own lives. So we are dedicating this session to them, and probably next week as well, so that we can understand what is suicidality, what is suicide, what happens until people are driven to consider suicide as an option. We have one of the best people to take us through this session, none other than Mary Gitau. Mary, how are you?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, and we apologize for the glitch. And yeah, truly grateful that we could meet here together and just continue with this conversation that keeps happening every Tuesday. So yeah, I am grateful to be part of this conversation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wish this was an in-person session so that people can see you, Mary, how tall you are in the field of mental health, and how intense you have been in the subfield of suicidality. Maybe you can tell us for the next 1 minute, who is Mary, and why is she so interested or so vast in matters of suicide prevention?
Thank you so much. So I am truly passionate about talking about suicide and yeah, suicide and self-harm. And this is a journey that I started so many years ago, way back when I was working. I first trained in human resource management and worked in a HR organization. You know, things happen in the office, and actually what happened is I had a very hardworking staff, and the staff knew everything about himself. He knew all the work that he needed to do, and then things just started changing about him. And you know, most of us in human resource management, all team leaders, all managers, are not trained matters mental health or even suicide, and even how to handle people different emotions. And so what happened is we'll just give him warning letters. And so one particular day, my boss comes and he was so annoyed, and he just came and stood on my desk and asked, "Kitao, why are you keeping this man here?" And true to it, he actually just stood by my desk, and I drafted a letter, a termination letter for this young man, signed it, printed, signed, and my boss signed. And I took the letter to this young man, and he left. He handed over and left. But 3 weeks later, he died by suicide. And for me, that was a tragedy that I have never been able to deal with. And because knowing that he didn't die because of anything in the workplace, but rather he died because of the things that were happening at his house. He was being abused at home. And he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to talk. You know, the masculinity thing, where you can't say that you're being abused at home, especially being a man, being an African man. And so we lost this young man. And for me, that was the turning point. I was like, I have always wanted to do this. Let me go and look out where can be able to pursue this and just move from psychology to suicidality to suicidality, and eventually founding an organization by the name Center for Suicide Research and Intervention, which is based here in Nairobi. So here at the CSRI, we support clients in a suicide crisis, be it prevention, intervention. We have a hotline. We also provide very specific care to postvention, and that's basically providing care and support to those who've been believed by suicide. So just being here and talking about this gives me much joy, because we keep learning about this thing, this what we avoid talking about mostly, suicide, and we at times hide it under the mental health, but suicide is really affecting so many of us. Not forgetting self-harm, where there is no even intentionality to die, but we have to cope with those bad feelings. Over to you, Mohammed.
Well, thank you very much, Mary. That is such a profound introduction, and such a sad story that plunged you into the world of suicidality or mental health. And I just want to say that a lot is happening at workplaces and in homes. And the trends that we have seen of late is that people can hold can hold still while they are at the workplace, but whenever they have opportunity to go back home, that is when now you realize everything collapses. Which means, much as the walls of the workplace are poisonous, the homes which are supposed to be comfortable, either they are not supportive or they exacerbate the poison that we carry home from the workplace. So it's very important that we take care of ourselves and we take care of those around us. Please be kind to everyone around us, because you never know what they are going through. A smile sometimes might be just a way to say, leave me alone. It may not necessarily be because someone is happy, and we need to be very, very, very careful with each other. Mary, before we go into my next question, I would urge that you share the hotlines and other resources on the call chat, so that everyone who is on this call can benefit from the services that you offer at CSRI.
Thank you so much. So our work at CSRI is rooted in trauma integration, and what we do is we honor the body, our culture, and our stories. We hold space for healing that is very relational and deeply respectful of where we're coming from, our African ways of knowing. We want to be witnesses to healing and to healing of our emotions and our bodies. Our hotline is 0703 318 313. Let me say it again, 0703 318 313. And my colleague here I have my colleague here with me. And in case you have any question, please write it down. This is also a very emotive topic when we talk about suicide and self-harm. And so we're giving a disclaimer. If at any moment you feel triggered, or you feel like you also want to kind of even take a break, please talk to any of us here. I know we have a couple of people that can support us. Mwanaisha is here, Collins is here, Enid is here. So if you're here and you get triggered and you want support, immediately you will get support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. We also have colleagues. Mahmoud, please, I know you are on standby. Please take care of the call chat. The number that Mary is talking about, you can write it on the call chat, or if there are questions on the call chat, please give a hand so that we may hear everybody who is on this call, on this platform. Thank you very much. Now, Mary, I want us to get into the nitty-gritties. There is suicide and there is self-harm. So which is which? Can you tell us the similarities between suicide and self-harm, or the difference? And if there are differences, then what are those differences between suicide and self-harm?
Thank you so much. I think the reason why we even want to talk about self-harming is because it's happening so many especially with our younger people and even the not so older generation. And we don't talk about it and we hide it so much because it happens inside, all covered by our clothes. So self-harm, what would we say is self-harm? Would probably say that self-harm is a deliberate act of hurting oneself. And this could be cutting, it could be burning, it could be hitting, could also probably even overdose without suicidal intent. The idea here is to cope with, is a coping mechanism to deal with the overwhelming emotional pain, stressors, or stress that is happening within you, or to just numb the real you. So this could be cutting, it could be burning, you hit yourself, overdosing. The idea is not to die, but is to cope or to kind of deal with the overwhelming emotions. And then what is suicide? Now, suicide is the intentionality. It's an intentional act of ending your life. The motivation here, or the motive here, is to stop living rather than to cope. So you've gotten into a place of intentionality that this one, I have tried to deal with this. I have tried my options A, B, C, up to Z. The only way out now is for me to go. That's the suicide. The self-harm is, I can still, let me keep trying. So instead of to deal with the emotional pain that is too much within you, you cut yourself, you mutilate your body, you burn, you hit yourself, you overdose because you want to numb that pain or the emotions or the stressors and the stress that is happening within you. Those are the two the definitions. The intent, when you think about it, the self-harm intent is not to die. The suicide intent is to die. Permanent kind of ends one suffering. So self-harm would say that it's maybe more of a coping strategy or a way of managing or communicating an unbearable emotion. Yet suicide is seen as a solution to end the pain completely. So self-harm can actually be repeated over and over and over again. It can actually even become very habitual. A person may even harm themselves many times, over many years, over many months. Because this has become a coping skill for them. When something overwhelming happens, they go and they probably cut. But suicide is a single event. Of course, you can have attempts, but suicide is a single attempt. Mohammed?
Thank you very much, Mary. I think it's getting very clear that people can actually die by not not having intended to die, but because of the extremities of self-harm. I have checked some facts, and some of the facts say that some people shift from self-harm to suicidal behavior if pain, shame, or hopelessness intensifies. If you indulge in self-harm so much and reaches a point where now people know and they shame you and you feel it's unbearable, then you move to suicidality instead of just self-harm. And some of the very severe cases would include physical injury, maybe permanent injury, amputation, because people can go to over amputating themselves. It can lead to chronic health problems, disfigurement and chronic pain. It can also lead to psychological consequences, deepening feelings of shame, guilt, and isolation. It can also lead to social and relational impact. If you keep self-harming, then your family is strained, and all the time you realize that people are in a panic mode because you have that tendency. And one of the things that happen, especially with the Gen Z generation, you find people from rich families take their vehicles and go racing in roads that are not raceworthy. And they drive that vehicle 200 kilometers per hour, just doing something that is very dangerous, or go to do very dangerous sports or activities that definitely one mistake, you are gone. And they really enjoy it. But that is also the death of depression. I think Mary, self-harm is but then you will discuss this in our next one. Yeah. So going to our next question. So what happens that somebody goes to the point of viewing suicide as an option? Tell us more about what is the person wanting to do, as in their heart. If we were to get into the heart or mind of this person who moves towards suicide, how are they feeling? What are their options? What are the alternatives?
When you think about a suicidal person, Machausa, a suicidal person's life is in a crisis. At that particular time that they are thinking about hurting or harming themselves. And a crisis could be any situation. It could be a call for a response that is difficult for even them to figure out. These crises are normal. We all need a way of coping and dealing with them. However, some people, or the coping mechanism is stretched beyond what you can be able to bear. So what we need to realize and to remember and to always know is that this person who is in that space of attempting or ideating suicide, their lives is in a complete crisis. And crisis could be any situations: lack of resources, lack of a job, termination of employment, chronic illness, poor or toxic environment in the workplace. It could be anything. Any crisis can push someone into a suicidal space. A suicide person, at that time, suicide is the solution to his or her problem at that particular time. And if we are able to understand this from their perspective, then it helps us to help these people define the problem. Because they're getting into a suicidality because of something. We actually call those things the drivers of suicidality, triggers. What are these that are driving you to suicidality? Let's talk about them. Because this person has tried so many things. They've said, I can't live, I can't take it anymore. There's something. So this person sees suicide as the only solution at that particular time. Someone who is in a suicide crisis, their thinking is very irrational at that particular moment. They're not insane, they're not crazy, but the thinking may be very irrational at that moment. They are not thinking about the consequences of their choices or their action. At that moment, it's to get out of this suffering. I must get out of this suffering. However, almost all suicidal people, they all have ambivalence. And what do we know about ambivalence? Ambivalence means you have a wish to die and a wish to live. They actually wish to live, but they also want to die. So when we are supporting these people who are in that space, we must acknowledge that there are two sides in this person. And that's the struggle of any suicidal person. And what we want to do, like for example, if you're supporting them, is to validate that side that wants to die. However, find out. Let's talk about this side of you that wants to live. Letting them talk openly about both wishes will lower the anxiety, because listening, caring saves lives. That's what we need to remember. We must always support the side that wants to live, but not discount the side that wants to die. These two people are living in two worlds at that particular moment, that person who is in a suicide crisis. The other thing we need to remember about someone who is in a suicide crisis is that it's an act of communication. Normal communication for them has broken down. And this person now is sending a desperate message in a reaction to an overwhelming circumstance that has been so difficult for them to bear. So remember that their normal communication now has been broken down. They have tried. So this is a desperate message that they're sending to many of us and saying, hey, it's too much. It's too much. And that's why I want to run away. That's why I want to exit. So unless the suicidal person, they have their own point of view, and we should never ever assume that. We should never ever let our agenda thrive and forget about this person who is in a crisis. Mohammed?
Thank you very much, Mary. This is quite profound, heavy message. In your submission, there's a point you talked about. Suicidality is basically caused. There are root causes of suicidality, and sometimes it could be lack of something. It could be, pressure. Of course, social pressure. Work pressure, workplace pressure, and all that kind of thing. Would we say that if you were attentive and you had the skills, you wouldn't have agreed to do the termination letter? You would actually try to get support for that gentleman that you terminated. Now, in the same case, listening to talks about teachers, health workers, security people who constantly remain in that toxic environment, would you say that it helps that if you were to take away someone from that firing line and take them to another space so that they can breathe fresh air, they can see different people, they can see different worlds, so that we minimize the propensity or a probability of them ideating suicide?
Yes. For example, let me go back to this, my former colleague. So this is a young man, like all of us may be here, and to our teachers and colleagues who are here. Like, you have a normal life. There's a way you come to work every single day. There's a way you wake up in the morning. You have, your normal kind of life. You pray, you take your breakfast, you prepare your kids, they go to school, you go to work, you sit on your desk. Because what had started happening with this young man, things about him started changing. Coming or reporting late to work. He'd report late to work. He knew his schedules. He was actually a flight attendant, meaning he knew his flight schedules, meaning he knows I have a flight departing at 9 a.m., so I need to be there at 8 a.m. to prep. I need to do a report. I need to submit manifesto. I need to do check-ins. I need to do, like, there are those things that are expected, and he knows that. Then all of a sudden, things about him change. He start coming to the office and kept. Substance and drug abuse changes even the way he's talking to us. Arrogance, lack of listening skills. Doesn't even care how they dress anymore. And that's what happens to many of us. A shift of something, even the minor. And it could be a shift from the best to the worst, or from the worst to the best. And many of us, well, we can't really say that at times we want to say, oh, it wasn't so clear that they were actually struggling with something. It may never be so clear. But for example, even how we relate with people that we are with, like in the workplace, if we are managers, for example, and we are here, how have your team members been? Even how they start talking today, for example, ukimwambia, good morning, the way they respond. How is that tone? Is that a tone that is inviting you to come and say, hey, I noticed today you responded differently? That's what we want to do. And we can even move people from department A to department B and see how is it changing. Because mtu anaweza kuambia, hey, I think I'm struggling being in this department. And you clearly see that people are really struggling. Can you be able to move them from department A to C and see, is there a way they can be supported? Because what we know is that, for example, there isn't any typical suicide victim. It's not like taking a blood test and saying this one will die next week. We don't have a typical suicide victim. There are no absolute reasons that someone will die by suicide. They're not there. there's no way we can say that we have an all-inclusive predictive list of warning signs, very clear. They're not clear because some of us actually say everything about him seemed okay. We always must remember that they're very all multi-dimensional kind of things that could trigger someone to suicidality. So the thing is, what are the drivers? What is driving someone to wanting to seek death as a solution? Is it family? When they start talking things about, hey, mimi familia yangu, I don't know what to do. How can we give it a thought and say, okay, I hear you. Thank you for mentioning that to me. I would like to be here and hear more about that. You know, that way. So you just give an ear to this particular person and it could change everything. But most of the time we dismiss it. Me, my family, and then we just dismiss it. It just pushes people away and away.
They start talking about their family, but wewe nawe kwani kuna mtu mwenye ana family? Wewe kila siku unaongea tu kuhusu familia yako. As in you brush
Exactly.
them, you don't know what's going on.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mary. As we want to delve into other questions, we've done the first half an hour. We are going to the next half an hour. I want to kindly invite anybody. Let me inspire you to speak. If you have a question, if you have a remark, if you have feedback, if you have dukuduku or whatever, please, this is an open forum. You can raise your hand via the tools here, or you can write your message on the call chat, so that we may give you an opportunity to speak. I saw a hand from Dr. Mukhtar. Is that you, sir? You may have your 2 minutes, sir.
Yes. Thank you very much. I was away on sabbatical leave from this conversation. First of all,
welcome.
Thank you, Mohammed, and the team for putting this together. Thank you, Malimo, for that insightful engagement. I have two observations. I think thoughts of suicide are abundant and frequent, not only among teachers, but across. It's a global nightmare. But even more recently for Kenya, because in a ruthless, hyper-vigilant, and complex operating environment for all of us, this is a tragedy we have to navigate. Talking about African values, Mohammed, I think the next generation of young people we are bringing to this world, they have no indigenous values. They are actually socialized by their school and the life environment they live outside, their grandparents. Two, I agree with the Malimo, the presenter. Adults and adolescents, I think, face severe challenges, whether individual or group crisis, which results in depression or unmet expectations, a hostile or hateful environment for the victims, sometimes feeling a sense of negligence. But I think as we confront this, because I have two questions, but I want to finish with my observations, well, I think we should never ever validate or rationalize the cowardice that drives suicide. That's what it is. Despite the enormity of the challenges, we advise everyone who is contemplating or who is fearful of those, please let us be brave, face challenges courageously to every form of desperation that we face, and we must break away from any miserable intents. Life is sacred. We must live it to survive, to thrive, and excel. But those around everyone else, please, let's listen to each other. Suffering is relative. So my first question to Malimu, I think the insightful personal experience you gave is very important and very encouraging. But in assessing the science of suicide, what do you think can we do in our practical sense in rural environments like Kwale, where this program has been born? What are the practical community-driven interventions that we can undertake to prevent suicide? Number two, is suicidal tendencies, is it genetical or it is acquired over the journey challenges of life? Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mukhtar Ogle. Always a pleasure to have you, and also to hear your sentiments. Dr. Mary, I know there are questions from Dr. Mukhtar. We have an opportunity where one of it you are going to answer very soon. The other one about being genetical or inherited or acquired, that's a question you may answer now. But in terms of what can we do, we have a question around that, and we are going to integrate it there. So is suicidality genetic or just an acquired phenomenon?
Thank you so much, Daktari. It's always lovely to hear your voice. I think I've been in this platform again, and your questions are always insightful. So is suicide genetic? Is it an acquired tendencies? To both, yes, but with a but. So how is it genetic? One, we need to realize that, like for example, let's take for example a mom who's really gone through a lot of trauma. So this mom has been exposed to a lot of trauma, a lot of conflict, a lot of distress, compounded stress. And so what happens, they bring up, there is what they have acquired, the stress within them affects the baby that they're carrying. And then in their family, there has been repeated cases of suicidality that has never been addressed over a long period of time. And so this becomes like a coping skill or a coping mechanism for them in the family. So it is like passed from one generation to another. So there's something in them that they acquire, like for example, a child being born already, this child will already be born in distress. Because the mom was in distress, probably in her pregnancy, she observed someone dying by suicide, or she lost someone by suicide. So when this child is already being born, they're growing up from that. They have acquired something from the mom. So they grow up, they're actually more prone to dying by suicide if something happens and it is not dealt with. So you can imagine now, this is a child who is growing from a traumatic space. They come into this world where you've mentioned, like, for example, what's happening in Kenya with the many cases of suicidality because of the systemic issues. And the systemic issues include things like even the economy. We're not doing so well economically. And economic is a driver to suicidality. Health-wise, we're also not doing so well. Climate, you know, the social breakdowns, the family breakdowns, like even as you've said about our families, where we're coming from, I believe God created us for connection, but because of the traumas and the many things that we have gone through as people, we've started protecting ourselves and lost the connection. So now because of that, this child grows, and if anything happens, they do not know how to deal with it. And suicide becomes an option for them. So this child has an acquired gene and an acquired behavior. So this child is now exposed both ways. So you can imagine this is a young man or a young woman who is now growing exposed to trauma, exposed to so much distress. So we want to be able to even, that's why it is very important for us to even start protecting our young mothers or mothers as they're carrying their babies. How do we take care of them? The prenatal and postnatal, how do we start protecting these moms and the family system so that children grow well in families that are stable, and so that even when they come out and face life, because there's nothing we can do about the distresses outside here, but how do they continue to be resilient within themselves? How do they continue to protect themselves and to sail through the crisis that we keep facing each and every day? I hope that answers that question. We'll talk about the question on community-driven interventions later.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mary. I want to inspire people again to keep.
Did we lose you, Mohammed?
I think we lost him.
We lost him.
Looks like his phone is gone out of fire.
Oh. Manaisha? Even Manesha is gone. Okay, but I can see him. Mohammed? I think he's, can everyone hear me?
You comment.
Mohammed?
Yes, we can hear you. I think he's cracking. I think he has internet issues.
Maybe Yvonne can talk as we wait for Mohammed. He's actually gone completely. Yvonne? Yvonne is here.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello. Yes,
Mohammed. Oh, Mohammed. Mohammed,
yes, there's
Yvonne had
some-
lifted her hand up. Maybe she can talk as we wait for Mohammed. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay.
Thank you, Gitau, and thank you for guiding us through this session. Now, I had, it's more of a question. Most of the time when a case of suicide happens, you find that most people will run to say you should seek help, talk to someone. Now, beyond just telling someone to seek help, what are the practical steps that you can take as an ordinary person when you notice that a friend is in crisis and they don't want to speak to anyone at that given time? What is that practical thing that you can do? Because sometimes just telling someone seek help is not a solution. And where do you strike a balance between being empathetic and being sympathetic?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Mohammed, to you.
Thank you. I will take in as a moderator as we are waiting for Muhammad to come in. So maybe we can take all the questions. I see there are some hands that are up, and then we can answer all the questions at once. There's a hand from Gabriel. So Gabriel can come in.
Yes. Good evening. My name is Gabriel. I'm a paralegal from Kwale Paralegal Network. My question is about women, because I've had a lot of cases where men wamejinyonga, wamekunywa sumu, and sometimes there's a lot of things men are going to do even in relationship, and they don't want to be open. How can we bring men on this issue, and so that we can help men to speak and to be open for what they are going through?
Thank you, Gabriel. And maybe Mary, also to let you know, we had a meeting with Kupet yesterday, and more than 90% of the suicidality cases, at least in Kwale County, are from the male gender.
Yeah.
So yes, this kind of supports the assertion by Gabriel. So if we can answer those questions, then we can go to the next in line.
Okay. So we'll talk about the question, the support on the question on support. The question on support. When someone has attempted, we always tell them go and see a mental health counselor, or go and see a mental health professional. It is all good. However, we need to realize that all of us have something that we can be able to offer. And this is what I will start by saying. Number one, you remember I talked about what we call the ambivalence. When someone comes and says that they're struggling, or they're thinking about hurting themselves or taking their lives, we want to pause and tell them, and this is how we're going to do it. We'll pause, we'll hear them and tell them, thank you for sharing that with me. I want you to know that I am here for any kind of support. And so we start even by asking them, okay, fine, tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you in this crisis? I am on a scale of, if anything is above a 7, we need an intervention. immediately from a mental health professional. It doesn't necessarily mean that a layperson cannot support. What we are going to do is we are going to be with them, make sure that we don't leave them. But we want to tap into their ambivalence. Remember what we said about ambivalence. There's a wish to die and there's a wish to live. Let's support even the wish to live and ask them, okay, I hear you. I know things have really been hard and rough on you. But let's talk about this other side that wants to live. We want to inspire hope in them. We want to identify their reasons for living. That's very important. We should never leave someone who is in a crisis alone at any given time, whether they're at 2 or whether they're at 9. Let's not leave them together. Let's be there with them. Just be there. Let them shed their tears. Let them cry. Create connection. Some people actually what they want is a connection, is a community, is someone to hear them. And that's the same thing, for example, even when you think about men. We push our men so much when you keep telling them, you know what? Go and seek a mental health professional. No, we want to encourage men to be there for each other and talk with each other, not necessarily with a mental health professional. It could be a community leader. It could be an imam or a sheikh or a pastor or a deacon or a priest who is there in the community, because healing happens in the community, not in a counselor's office. It happens in a home. It happens in the system, in the community. What is it in the community? It could be different games like what Samba Sport is doing, engaging young people with games and plays and dramas and different things in Kwale County. So that is what we want to invite our men to keep coming, not necessarily forcing them to talk. As they do those things, as they play together, as they dance together, as they play that ball together, as they kick that ball together, they'll start talking small. Kidogo kidogo tu anasema tu ana throw word moja hapa hivi, and it helps to relieve pain from them. So where do we draw the line between empathy and sympathy? So trauma or distress happens when there's no safety, security, connection, and empathy. When someone will get into a crisis when we don't create a safe, secure space for them, when there's no connection and when there's no empathy. For example, when someone even comes and says, my family is this, alafu namwambia unafikiria hata mimi sina familia. The moment we say that, we are actually already pushing them away. We want to pause our family agenda and hear their family agenda at that particular time. What is their family agenda? That's empathy, that's connection, that's creating safety and a secure place for them to talk. It doesn't mean that we don't have a problem. I could be coming from a family that hiyo siku tu labda nimekorofishana with my partner, but at that particular time when this other person says, I need to pause my family agenda and give this person who said this publicly or voiced it a safe space for them to continue saying what they're saying. And that happens in a community. We will not tell them go. At times, actually, we push people into their grave by telling them, go and see a mental health counselor. Before afike huko, ashajitoa uhai. Yet we have something within us that we can be able to offer. Mohammed?
Thank you very much, Mary. What it means, and this has always been my mantra, Dr. Mary, that if we were kind enough in our villages, if we were kind enough in our homes, if we were kind enough in our offices, nobody would reach a point where they need to see a psychologist.
Yeah.
Nobody would reach a point where they need to see a psychiatrist.
That's
Just
true.
the little kindness that you can offer the next person, it's enough to prevent them from toppling over. So Dr. Mary is saying that when people are moving towards crisis, it is the little things that we can offer: the hug, the smile, the cuddle, the assurance, the validation. Sema awe kila siku nalalamika tu kuhusu finance. You never know. Your resilience pattern and their resilient patterns are different. probably wewe ulizaliwa in a way kwamba you lived long stretches without money and you could manage it. There are other people who've not lived long stretches without money. So you are being broke at 5,000, they are being broke at 20,000, and it moved them to crisis. So you cannot you cannot say kukosa pesa tu kidogo, because you never know their level of resilience iko namna gani. So those are some of the things that we can do before telling someone nenda ukaonekane na daktari, because nenda ukaonekane na daktari unamaanisha mimi ni wazimu. That is what people think. So
that's how they get it.
Mahmoud, are there questions on the call chat so that we move to our last question?
Yes, thank you, Muhammad. If I check on the call chat here, we have Madam Catherine Ndungu says, thanks for this insightful talk. Looking at it from a gender perspective, is any gender more prone to suicide than the other? That's a question to you, Madam Gitau. And then Daktari Mukhtar also come in and says, please teachers and other community thought leaders raise critical issues that need to be addressed as a matter of urgency and aligned to subject under discussion. That's all from the culture. To Muhammad, back to you.
Okay, thank you.
I think Dr. Meru can answer those, and then we'll ask you our last question, and then we wrap it up for today.
Okay. So yeah, so is there something about the gender? We're actually losing more men to suicide nowadays, and that has always been the case. But also statistics show and data show that more women attempt suicide, but more men die by suicide. Why? Thinking again about the masculinity, when a man decides, they've decided. Remember, suicide has its shame. It makes you feel guilty when you're getting into that moment. So for a man to get into that moment, amejaribu, and there's no a turn back for him. Again, women, there's someone who joked and said that women actually take pills alafu wanafungua mlango. That's on a lighter note. But that, when you think about it, more women attempt suicide, but more men die by suicide. Why? Because when a man decides, they decide. You know, they're the head. They've tried always before they can actually get to that. There's no one to listen to them. We are so unkind in the community. We are so unkind at home. We're so unkind in the system. And so they keep it to themselves, and then they cannot bear it anymore. They have been brought down by shame. Their ego has been interfered with. And when you interfere with the ego of a man, when you interfere with the self-esteem of a man, you've pushed them to the graveyard. So that's what happens. We are losing so many men. And that's what you had Muhammad saying, that 90% of the suicide cases currently are men, and it's always been the men. So we need to take care of our brothers, of our spouses, of our partners, of our sons from an early age. How do we even socialize them in the community? How do we view men in the community? Do we know that actually men feel pain? They do feel pain. They have those moments where they want to cry. They have those moments where they wake up and they feel, why do I always have to be depended on? They have those moments, a 42-year-old man desiring to be a child again, to have a mommy who comes and says, baby, how are you today? How was your day? A hug. You know, the way you come home and you give your son a hug? Even men desire that. So how are we bringing up our young men already, you know? And we need to start knowing that there's no shame even in talking. And like when a man comes and says, "Mimi nimechoka," that's a normal thing because everyone can choka, you know? So we need to acknowledge that these things that also happen to women, they can also happen to men. What was the other question? Muhammad, to you?
That was the question, and Daktari was urging people to share and raise concerns that are practical. So maybe to our last question, yes, we have tried our best, and then someone has died of suicide. Then how do we move on as a community? There's already death that has happened in our midst by suicide. How do we move on? Let's say imetoka, let's just move on with our life, or is there something special that we need to do because of that happening?
We need to realize what we call it postvention. We need to realize that at times we lose it because we also give so much focus to the deceased. Someone once said that when someone dies by suicide, they die a single death. But those who are left behind, they die thousands and thousands of deaths every single day. What you want to do is a community commitment is to immediately identify interventions and survivors and know how to go about it by supporting them, by caring for them. Noticing and realizing that they are hurting, that there's so much that is even going on in their lives at that particular moment because of the guilt, the shame. So we cannot ignore them. We cannot ignore those who've been left behind. We need to take care of them. And how do we do that? Number one is just even being present with them. No judgment, no blame game. It's just listening to them, helping them find hope, really live, even after a loss, and even allowing them to know that this loss, it has a meaning to them and a different meaning to everybody. So allowing them to grieve at their own pace. We cannot hurry it, and we cannot forget them. We need to know that they need to be taken care of, because postvention is actually one of the best strategy of preventing suicide. You know, never forget that postvention is actually one of the best strategy of preventing suicide. So how do we care about these people? When someone dies by suicide, what's the first thing that we do when we go to them? Some of them will blame themselves and say, I missed to see that. How could I have allowed them to go? You know, the shame, the stigma associated with it. We just want to sit there with them to show them that we hear you. We hear your struggle. We notice your loss. But I'm here with you. No judgment. I just want to be here. No, don't give them solution. Don't tell them that God will. That God will that this person gets out to go where? Let's not give them ideas. Let's just listen and be with them. There with them. Supporting them in their own unique way and in their own space. So, for example, at CSRI, we have a program specifically for those who've lost someone to suicidality, where we just come and talk about different experiences. How was your experience when you lost your beloved to suicide? And we talk about it. What happened to you? What was happening within your body? What was happening with your emotions? What was happening in your mind? Let's talk about the things that happened around you. And we talk about these stories. We share them. And we allow people to cry, to grieve, and together we hold space for each other. Because every single day, when someone dies by suicide, us who are left behind, we keep dying each and every day with so many questions, with so many worries, with so many wishes. But we want to be there to listen to this person, not to give them any solution. Even if they never want to talk, they just want to see you. Be there for them to see you. Giving them hope, and not even pronouncing it, but just being there actually gives them hope. Mohammed?
Thank you very much, Mary. I know we've come to the end of the session. We are 1 minute to 9:30, which is our end time. I want to believe, and I hope I'm speaking on behalf of everyone, that this has been very short, and this topic is gigantic and it needs more time. May I welcome you next week, Dr. Mary, so that we discuss events before suicide, like what are the predisposing factors, what are the phases towards suicide, and how can we cut that connection. Tunaweza zima vipi umeme so that as we see these predisposing factors when they phase 1, before phase 2, or before phase 3, how can we come in and make sure we cut that connection to the final act of taking their own lives. It's been a wonderful session with loads of knowledge and information, but kindly come back next week so that we take people step by step. If it will need be, then we do a third round.
Yeah, I think we need to do that. We rushed a bit. Yeah, but yeah, thank you so much. Thank you everyone even for participating and being part of the conversation. We are all learners in this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you are parting short so that between now and next week, what is your parting short so that just in case we are able to rescue someone in the course of the week, what are you telling us?
Most of the time when someone comes to us and they're struggling with suicidality, they'll come and say, I'm really a bad person. I am a loser. I don't deserve to die. I just want to die. The one thing I tell people, do not be tempted to persuade them. Listen to them. Listen why they're feeling that they're losers. Listen to why they're saying that they don't deserve to die. Listen to them. Just listen to them. Let them tell you. And then once they tell you, you will know what to do. Most of the time we want to rush to tell them don't. To tell them, no, you're not a loser. But that's what they feel. We want to hear, yes, I hear you. Tell me, what makes you think about that? What makes you feel about that? Let's talk about that. That is the changing point. And that could be the turning point of this person. The moment someone says, I feel like I don't want to see tomorrow, pause. Okay, thank you for letting me know that. Let's talk more about that. That's the changing point. So if we meet someone tomorrow and they say, I don't think I want to see tomorrow, pause. Let them tell you more about why they do not want to see tomorrow. What is pushing them to that space? That could be the changing point for them to talk, because what we want is for all of us to pause and for them to talk and tell us without us advising them. We want to hear them before we can come up with a solution. So that would be my parting shot. Thank you, Mohammed.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much, Mary. You've been of great support over the years, and we are going to enjoy your services the next 2 weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been Mental Health Tuesday today. It's been hot. It's been nice. And let's carry these lessons to the week, and let's come prepared for extras from Mary next Tuesday. Thank you very much. God bless you. Love you all. Good night.
Good night. That was so informative. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Good night. Thank you so much.